Huntington's disease is a hereditary neurodegenerative disease that affects three aspects: physical, emotional, and cognition. This is an autosomal dominant disease that affects your chromosomes that are not your sex chromosomes and only needs one copy of the mutated gene in order to express its traits. Due to this, there's a 50% chance of being affected by HD if one of your parents are affected. Huntington's disease is caused by the mutation in the huntingtin protein, also known as HTT, which is located in chromosome 4. This occurs when there are too many CAG repeats in your DNA. A normal person would have 10 to 35 repeats, whereas a person affected by HD would have 36 or more repeats. The longer the CAG repeats, the earlier the onset of HD will occur. One CAG repeat is called a repeated trinucleotide, and this codes for the amino acid glutamine. Too many CAG repeats leads to abnormally long huntingtin proteins, which can be cut into smaller strands, creating more toxic fragments that bind together with neurons. This leads to brain death, specifically the caudate, the putamen, and eventually the cerebral cortex. Symptoms of HD usually appear between the ages of 35 to 55, but can appear earlier or later in life. Physical symptoms include involuntary movements or chorea, weight loss, diminished coordination, difficulty walking, talking, and swallowing. Emotional symptoms include depression, apathy, irritability, anxiety, and obsessive behavior. Cognitive symptoms include difficulty with focus, planning, and recalling information and making decisions, and impaired eyesight. 1 in every 10,000 people are affected by HD in the world. Another 150,000 or more people are at risk for developing the disease. This disease can be diagnosed prenatally, where you test the fetus by extracting DNA from the fetal cells via chronic villus sampling, where a sample of chronic villi is removed from the fetal part of the placenta, or amniocentesis, where you remove a small sample of amniotic fluid using a needle. This can also be diagnosed later in life by analyzing the DNA in a blood sample for the HD mutation by counting the number of CAG repeats in a huntingtin gene. There is currently no cure for HD, however there are treatments to help minimize the symptoms as they do worsen over time. For physical symptoms such as chorea, you can take medications such as Xenazine, do physical and occupational therapy, and take precautions such as using non-slip mats and handrails to help prevent falls. In terms of cognitive symptoms, people can usually retain past memories, are able to recognize people, objects, letters, numbers, and colors, and are often able to continue carrying out jobs that they have been previously doing for many years. Emotional symptoms may require counseling, psychotherapy, and medications such as antipsychotics and antidepressants. The life expectancy of someone with HD is usually 10 to 30 years after the onset of symptoms. Juvenile Huntington usually leads to death 10 years after the symptoms develop. An organization that helps with HD is Huntington Society of Canada, which was founded in 1973 by Ralph and Ariel Walker. They had Huntington's disease in their family and kept receiving misinformation and were confused about HD, which frustrated them. That led them to wanting to create an organization that could provide reliable information to the public. This organization runs Race HD, which is Huntington Society of Canada's national race team, and it participates in races all over Canada and the United States to raise awareness and funds for research. They also hold smaller events such as golf tournaments and motorcycle races. Research for HD includes clinical research where neurologists, psychologists, psychiatrists, and other investigators improve their understanding of patient symptoms and the progression of the disease in order to develop new treatments. Imaging research where specialized technologies enable scientists to visualize what the defective gene does to the structures and chemicals in the brain. Animal models where animals are used to study features of HD, and fetal tissue research where investigators implant fetal tissues in rodent and non-human primates to understand and correct nerve cell degeneration. A genetic screening is a type of diagnostic test that determines changes in chromosomes, genes, proteins, and can confirm or rule out genetic disorders or help determine a person's chance of developing or passing on a genetic disorder to the next generation.